morning. Happy Monday. We are going to be filling out the final thing for our characteristics of quadratics functions, the domain and the range. We've done everything else. Now we're doing domain and range. When you're finished watching this video, taking notes, you will submit notes and you will complete problems 5, 6, 7. Whoops, these numbers are terrible. 7 and 8. I'm going to see if I can fix those numbers. 5, 6, 7, and we're trying to change that to 8 and 9. But basically, these 5 problems is what you're doing. So you're going to look at the domain and range. You're going to take notes on this section. You're going to submit them and complete the 5 problems. So we've been working on quadratic functions. We already know the formula looks like this. We know that A tells us our opening direction. We know that negative B over 2A gives us our AOS. All right, we've worked with some of that stuff. And we know that it's going to form a parabola when we graph it. Okay, so for the domain, you've learned what domain is before. We know that domain is x values. We've talked about this in the past. We also had a little clue. Remember, domain is x, range is y, and they're in alphabetical order. D comes before R, x comes before y as our little tool to help us remember that. But the domain on the graph is going to be our x values. Now, here's the thing about quadratic functions. Quadratic functions start here in a parabola. So they have one point where they start and then they go up. And these arrows tell us that they go up forever. This one goes up forever. I can't graph all of these points. I don't have a piece of paper big enough. This one goes down forever. So domain, luckily, will always be what we say as all real numbers. And we say all real numbers because there are such things as imaginary numbers. And imaginary numbers would not count with graphs, okay? So we say all real numbers, or the fancy way you can write it and skip writing all real numbers is this symbol right here. So you've got kind of this line down and then a big capital R. And this means all real numbers. So anytime a problem where you see an x squared and you know it's quadratic, the domain will always be all real numbers. So that's a pretty easy answer. And the reason why it's all real numbers is because this goes on and on forever and ever and ever. All right, the range is a little bit trickier, but what you're going to do with the range is you're going to use the minimum and maximum. And you've already learned that if you have a graph like this, this would be your minimum. You've already learned how to say that your minimum here is -3. Right? And this is a maximum because this graph is going down. And your maximum here would be -2. So you learned how to do this at the end of last week. Now we're just going to take it and let it help us with our range. So we know our range is our y values. We've learned that in the past for things that we've talked about mathematically. So when you do a range, you're always going to answer as y is greater than or equal to, you need to use this in quality, your minimum, or you're going to answer y is is less than or equal to your maximum. And you're going to fill a number in for these two parts right here. The other way you can write it is you can write your minimum number to xfinity, and you can use brackets. You might see it like that sometimes. Negative x infinity. Sorry, did I say xfinity? I meant infinity. Negative infinity. So in order to make the infinity sign, you're just making a sidewards 8, a negative on top of it, and then your maximum. Okay? So here, since this is a minimum value, all right, we're going to say that all of the y's above it are all answers. So we're going to say that y is greater than or equal to -3, or you can say the minimum, you can say -3, infinity. Because it's going to be all of these numbers all the way up. Anything above -3 equals y. Anything below is not going to be part of our, it's not going to count. It's not going to be a number that we're using. Anything above. So we answer y is greater than or equal to -3, or you can write it like this. Over here, we have a maximum. So we're going to say y is less than or equal to, because this is the top number, and now we're going down all the numbers underneath. Y is less than or equal to -2. Okay, because all of these numbers in here, all the way forever, are going to be numbers that are going to be part of our range. Anything up here is not going to be part of our range because our graph, our line, our quadratic is never going to go that high. You can also write it, or you might also see it written as negative infinity and -2, because you're going to fill in that max value with the number that you found as your highest point. All right, hope that's helpful. Again, you have 5 problems to do for homework. This is it. This is the last thing we're learning about quadratics. After this, we're going to spend some time practicing and reviewing and taking a quiz.